great space with like a legit kitchen and everything. So that's really fantastic. Without further ado, let's go with some statistics. So as of April 1st, there are 473 open issues on github.com/rails/rails, the Rails GitHub repo. About 7 are filed every day, and 7 are closed every day. So you don't have to like run a really intense Ruby script to figure out like they're not really making any headway on these issues. Like the same number of issues kind of stays open for a long time. There's only 40 core members on the Rails team, so it's really difficult for them to kind of make any headway since so many are being opened and only so many are being closed every day. We're kind of in this stasis in this community. So a lot of people have been thinking lately about how do we kind of close some of these issues faster, how do we make Rails more robust, and so that's where we came up with, not we, I was like huge into it, I'm just kind of jumping on the bandwagon now, to triaging Rails issues. So triaging is the process of determining the most important people or things from amongst a large number that require attention. So you've probably heard, like, hopefully you haven't been to the ER, but if you have, you've heard this word because the triage room is like where they decide to treat people based on the severity of their issues, right? So they're gonna work with somebody whose arm is falling off before somebody who has like kind of like a mild cough and like maybe a runny nose. So similarly, triaging helps the Rails core team decide which issues they're going to fix, which bugs seem the most outstanding, if there's security patches, that sort of thing. Those are going to be the ones that get the most attention, the ones that have the most attention devoted to them in terms of the research and that sort of thing. And that's where we can help them. The most important thing to remember, I think, in contributing to Rails is don't be a hero. Like, you don't have to like fix all these active record issues yourself, or like make huge patches to like active support and their inflector and that sort of thing. It helps the core team so much just to actually provide them more information about what's happening in the bug that's being reported or the pull request or that sort of thing. So you can really make a lot of headway in contributing to Rails without actually implementing anything yourself, which is kind of amazing if you think about it. So it's kind of 3 steps of triaging. First, is it a bug? Then try to reproduce it. The Rails community is often really, really great with this. Oftentimes somebody will like create just kind of a stripped down Rails app that demonstrates the issue, and you can just kind of pull it down, try to reproduce the issue, and then you can report back on the Rails issue queue, which Ruby version you're using, which Rails version you're using, and kind of what happened with the bug. This way it kind of gives the Rails core team, when they're arriving at the issue, they can get a sense of how valid is this bug, where does it happen, were you able to reproduce it. Second, if it's a pull request, comment on it. Does it have robust tests? Does it need more documentation? Is there anything else that they can change about it? This is, I think, where the really awesome stuff comes in, and we'll talk about this. If you've looked at the Rails issues, the number of, there's like typically like 10 comments before they get closed, and there's a lot of talk between the Rails core members and the people who filed the pull request about, is this like a legitimate way to go? And you really get a sense of actually where Rails is going, their kind of vision for the framework as a whole. It's really amazing to kind of watch these. So commenting on pull requests is a really great way to learn. And thirdly, there is no step 3 because Rails feature requests go on the Rails Google group. So really all we're dealing with is bugs and pull requests. And those are easy enough, even like as an intermediate Rails developer, to go on and kind of check out what's going on with them and kind of provide more information. So the benefits of triaging, there are numerous, but a couple of them, you become a better developer. Like I said, you get the people obviously on the core team are amazing, and you get a sense when they comment. There's a lot of stylistic things that they'll comment on, like it's not super well documented how they write their methods, but if you read a lot of the source of active support, active record, these sorts of things, you get a sense of how the Rails developers like to write their code, and you can get a lot of stylistic kind of pointers just by reading their source and reading the pull request and seeing what the Rails core team says about it. Second, triaging can lead to commits. Commits can lead to glory. Last week, I was triaging some pull requests, and somebody had submitted a pull request for, there was like a spelling error on one of like the error like warning output messages, and they caught a spelling error, but there was also a grammatical error in that. So I submitted a pull request for the grammatical error, and our pull request kind of came together and worked as a force multiplier. It was kind of amazing, and that's kind of like a really small thing. Like we just fixed like a grammatical error and a spelling error, but the more you work with the Rails issue queue, the better sense you get of the type of pull requests that are happening, the things that are broken on Rails, and things that can be fixed. And I don't know about you, but if you've applied for a job recently as a Rails developer, like a lot of people like to see that you have commits to Rails, and this is a really easy way to do it. And third, the sense of community and ownership. Like after my first contribution to Rails, I went to work the next morning, I started working with Rails, and there was this kind of amazing sense of like, this is something that I'm not just like consuming anymore, like I'm helping to make better, and that's kind of an amazing feeling. Like, it's a really great community that's built around Rails, and being able to contribute to that is huge. There's an amazing tool for the job already kind of built. It's called codetriage.com. It's built by Richard Schneeman from Heroku, if you guys know Heroku. It's a really great, it's obviously Twitter bootstrappy, but the functionality is there, and it's really awesome. You can basically just go and you just basically create an account. It like links up with your GitHub, and you pick a repo to watch, and they'll send you emails from the Rails issue queue in your inbox every morning, and you can kind of check and see right before you're having your coffee, check the Rails issue queue, see what's going on, and it's an amazing way to kind of get in touch with what's going on in the issue queue. So you subscribe to a project, you receive emails. It's that simple. So next slide. So tips for good triaging. There's 3, and they're really simple. The first, add to the conversation. You'll sometimes see a lot of pull requests or bugs that somebody comes on and just is like that thumbs up emoji. That's like all there is, which is awesome, but it's not super helpful. Like, is it a good pull request? Does it have good documentation? Does it need more tests? Like, not every pull request is perfect, and a lot of the constructive criticism around that is where you can grow as a developer, where the person who submitted the pull request can grow as a developer, and where the Rails issue, the Rails core team can kind of come in and talk more about what needs to happen for this pull request to be merged into master. The second is to be kind. We're all working on making Rails better, and we all have a common goal in mind. It can get really difficult when you're commenting on people's code, and people can really take things personally. And so I think just having a sense of like kindness toward everybody in our community goes a long way. And third, report back. And this kind of brings us full circle. The whole point here is to provide as much information as you can to the Rails core team, so that they can come in and they can do their job that they do well, which is implementing. Like, it really sucks for somebody to have to come in and see, is this a valid bug? When does this happen? Can I reproduce it? If all that work is done for them, then the Rails core team can just come in and start implementing, and then we're all happy. Rails is more robust. We've done our job, and we've gotten our commits, and Rails becomes more amazing. We're on version 4 right now, for beta. Right? If any of you guys have checked it out, it's really amazing, and it gets there by us contributing and the core team contributing and us all working together as a community. So that's all I have. And if you have any questions, you can find me later, or if you have any that seems like they would be good for everyone. Not so much. Awesome. Okay, thanks for your time. Sorry.
That was fun.
I didn't want to. Okay.
Doing Rails work at work. So working and doing triage stuff and doing a pull request. Is that allowed at work, or how does that work at your work?
That's a good question. For me, actually, my first contribution to Rails came about because I was working with it at work. The image alt attribute, like on an image tag, if you have an underscored file name, which all of our images are, they don't take those out, so the image alt attribute of the image tag is like just a long underscored string, which is just terrible. So I was like, we really need to do something about this. And so yeah, at my job, it's like encouraged, like if there's something wrong with a framework, submit a pull request, because we're all really deeply committed to Rails. And hopefully, your employer is as well, and it's good for everyone for these pull requests, and you learn so much through that process. So I would be amazed if any of you were like working on pull requests at work, and your boss was like, "Whoa, get back to the product." Like, yeah, I know for me at least, it's really encouraged to work on it. So, yeah. Anyone else? Any questions? You could also find me after.
How like at the beginning as a new Rails dev, looking at that list. Were you like, yeah, I can jump in? Or was it more around documentation that you started?
That's actually a really great question as well, because I know like when I first got started, the last thing I wanted to do was like clone Rails just into my own like home repo. Like that was terrifying to me. I think it's like 80 megs now, and so it like takes forever to download, and you're just like, what's even in there? It's like all this code, I'm never going to understand it. A lot of them, there's actually a no doc tag in on a lot of the methods that need documentation. So you can actually just pull that down and grep for no doc, and you can add the documentation. So like you said, documentation is a really great place to get started. But you know, a lot of things that you hear like when you're first getting started, and you kind of take for granted when you get into the intermediate part about Rails, is that Rails is magic. You know, like there's so much stuff going on in the background that you just kind of don't know about. And so when you actually start to open up some of these classes and figure out what's going on, it's really amazing that you can actually start to realize, you know, how they're implementing some of these things, because they do a lot of the methods in a lot of these classes are really well composed. They're composed of like many smaller methods, and so you just kind of getting a sense of reading the source, you get a sense of how these things are implemented. And as terrifying as it is to pull that down from GitHub and clone it and fork it, you really get a good sense of it. So yes, starting with documentation is definitely what I'd recommend. Grep for the no doc tag, anything that needs documentation. And also like a lot of the Rails core team, like 3/4 of them are from Brazil somehow, which is awesome, but sometimes that can lead to like really interesting grammatical differences or spelling kinds of differences. So even tiny pull requests that like help contribute to the documentation are huge and really valuable. So yeah, get started with the docs and just read the source, read the classes, see how they're composed, and figure out like how some of these weird things that just are magic kind of start to really happen. Kind of amazing. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Woo!